The question. Jake Martinez adjusted his teaching materials as morning light from 3 different suns streamed through the windows of the Galactic University classroom. The alien shadows dancing across the walls had become familiar after 2 years of teaching here, but he still marveled at the diverse collection of students before him. The classroom buzzed with alien activity. Xelarians with their distinctive gray skin and 4 graceful arms moved like dancers as they prepared for class. Vorthons floated peacefully in their breathing tanks filled with thick orange gas, while Noxari students sat motionless, their crystal bodies refracting the triple sunlight into rainbow patterns across the room. Most fascinating were the Luminina, beings of pure blue light somehow contained in chairs designed for solid creatures. Jake was the only human among them, a fact that still amazed him daily. "Good morning, everyone," Jake announced, activating the holographic projector. "Today we continue our comprehensive study of planetary biology. We've examined over 300 worlds this semester, and each has revealed something extraordinary about life's adaptability." A 3-dimensional image of a lush green world materialized in the room's center, slowly rotating to display blue oceans and pristine white clouds. "This is Verdania Prime," Jake explained. "Half the gravity most of you experience, temperatures consistently between 20 and 30 degrees, atmosphere perfectly balanced with nitrogen and oxygen. Ideal conditions for carbon-based life." Vel, one of the Luminina students, hummed softly. "Beautiful world, Professor Martinez. So peaceful and safe." Jake nodded, switching to another planet, this one ice-covered except for a narrow green band around its equator. "And this is Frost Home. Completely frozen except for this equatorial zone. The inhabitants have evolved thick fur and can slow their metabolism to near hibernation during harsh seasons." Crix, a Xelarian student, raised 2 of her 4 arms. Her translator converted her clicking sounds into words. "Professor Martinez, these worlds are fascinating in their diversity. Life truly finds remarkable ways to adapt. But I have a question about something that puzzles me greatly." "Go ahead, Crix." "We've studied hundreds of worlds classified as habitable in our databases, but there's one world that appears repeatedly with a Class 12 Death World designation. The computer files list it as one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy, yet the species from this world seems to be everywhere. They live on ships, establish colonies, explore dangerous territories that most of us would never dare approach." Jake felt his stomach tighten, sensing where this conversation was headed. "The species I'm referring to," Crix continued, "is humans. Your species, Professor Martinez. The files describe Earth as a nightmare world of impossible extremes. So how did humans not only survive but become one of the most successful species in the galaxy? You seem so fragile compared to us." The classroom fell silent. Jake could feel every alien eye, sensor, and attention-gathering organ focused intently on him. In their faces, he saw genuine curiosity mixed with bewilderment. To them, Earth was a horror world that should have exterminated any life foolish enough to attempt survival there. Thorin, a massive Noxari resembling carved black stone, spoke in his deep, rumbling voice. "The database indicates Earth has crushing gravity, poisonous atmosphere, deadly radiation, extreme temperatures, violent weather patterns, and creatures that exist solely to kill other creatures. How does anything survive there?" Vex, a Vorthon floating in his gas tank, added his concern. "The atmospheric pressure alone would crush most of us. The oxygen levels would incinerate our breathing organs, and the temperature fluctuations could kill us within minutes." Jake walked to the front of his desk and perched on its edge. He had taught about countless worlds, but never really discussed his own with his alien students. Earth was simply home, he'd never considered how it must appear to beings from safer, gentler worlds. "You know what?" Jake said with a slight smile. "That's an excellent question, Crix. But I think to properly answer it, we need to try something different. Instead of just talking about Earth, maybe you should see it for yourselves." The alien students exchanged glances filled with surprise and worry. "You mean?" Vel whispered, "Visit a Class 12 Death World. Why not? Jake asked. You're all science students. The best way to understand something is through direct observation. Who here has never visited a death world? Every alien hand, tentacle, crystal appendage, and glowing limb in the room rose simultaneously. Perfect, Jake said, standing and moving to the holographic controls. Pack your environmental suits and emergency supplies. We're taking a field trip to Earth. The journey begins. The holographic display shifted to show a blue and green world spinning peacefully in space. Earth looked deceptively serene from this distance, with its swirling white clouds and vast oceans, but Jake knew his students were already accessing their databases. The information they were reading was painting expressions of fear and disbelief across their various alien features. Professor Martinez, Crick said carefully, "Are you certain this is safe? The mortality rates for non-adapted species visiting Class 12 worlds are extraordinarily high." Jake gazed at the image of his home world, contemplating all the elements that made it dangerous: the storms, predators, diseases, radiation, crushing gravity, temperature extremes, poisonous plants and animals. He thought about how Earth attempted to kill everything living on it every single day. Then he considered humanity, how they hadn't merely survived but learned to love their dangerous world, swimming in crushing oceans for recreation, climbing deadly mountains for sport, and playing with creatures capable of tearing them apart. You want to know how humans survived Earth? Jake asked his students. The only way to truly understand is to witness it firsthand. But don't worry, I'll keep you safe. After all, I'm just a fragile human, and if I can survive there, I'm confident we can keep you alive for a few days. The alien students exchanged worried glances, but Jake could see their curiosity burning stronger than their fear. They were scientists, and scientists always sought truth, even when that truth was dangerous. When do we leave? Crix asked. Tomorrow morning, Jake replied. And trust me, you're going to learn things about life that no classroom could ever teach you. The transport ship Harmony glided through space toward the blue and green jewel hanging before them. Jake stood at the main viewing window, watching his alien students stare at Earth with a mixture of wonder and terror. Crix pressed her forehands against the transparent aluminum, her gray skin growing even paler as data streamed across her tablet. Professor Martinez, the radiation levels from your sun are 50 times stronger than what my species can survive. How are you not dead? Jake chuckled, moving closer to the window. Below them, Earth grew larger and more detailed, swirling white clouds, vast blue oceans, and patches of brown and green land. It looked beautiful and peaceful from space, but he knew his students' instruments were revealing something entirely different. Our sun is actually pretty mild, Jake said. You should see what happens during solar storms. Captain Lisa Park's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. She was the only other human aboard, and her calm tone carried a subtle warning. Attention all passengers. We're beginning our descent through Earth's atmosphere. All non-human passengers must report to shielded compartments immediately. We're detecting increased solar activity. The alien students looked at Jake with panic in their various eyes and sensors. Thorin, the massive crystal being, made a grinding sound that his translator converted to words. Professor, you must come to the shielded area with us. The radiation will cook your soft tissues. Jake remained at the window, watching aurora lights dance across the sky in brilliant green and blue ribbons. The solar radiation that terrified his students appeared to him as beautiful curtains of light flowing through space. Why would I hide from this? Jake asked. It's gorgeous. Vex, floating in his gas-filled tank, made bubbling sounds of distress. The electromagnetic radiation is so intense it's interfering with our ship systems. How can you call it beautiful? Because it is, Jake said simply. He pointed to the lights painting the atmosphere in brilliant colors. Humans have watched the aurora for thousands of years. We write poetry about it. We travel to frozen places just to see it better. The ship trembled as they entered the atmosphere, and Jake felt Earth's familiar gravitational pull. To him, it felt like coming home. To his students, it felt like being slowly crushed by an invisible hand. Vel, the Luminina who resembled a cloud of blue light, dimmed noticeably as the ship's gravity systems adjusted to Earth normal. The gravitational forces are compressing my molecular structure. How do you move under this crushing weight? Gravity builds strong bones and muscles, Jake explained. Human children play games in this gravity. They run, jump, and dance. The viewing screen shifted to show external sensors, and suddenly the students could see Earth's surface rushing toward them. Mountains jutted from the ground like colossal knife blades, and Jake smiled as he recognized the approach to his hometown. "Welcome to Earth," he said softly. "Try not to let it kill you. First contact with death." The Harmony touched down at the university's research station in Colorado, and Jake watched his students huddle in their environmental suits like frightened children. The suits were bulky, military-grade protection designed for the most hostile environments, yet his students still looked terrified. "Remember," Jake said, stepping out of the ship in nothing but casual clothes, "stay close to me and don't touch anything I don't approve first." The moment the airlock opened, chaos erupted among his students. Alarms blared from their suits as Earth's atmosphere hit their sensors. "Professor!" Crix screamed through her suit speaker. "The oxygen concentration is toxic. It's burning through our filters. The atmospheric pressure is crushing our internal systems." Vex bubbled frantically from his reinforced tank. Jake took a deep breath of the crisp mountain air, feeling invigorated. Nothing like fresh Earth air. A little thin up here at altitude, but perfect for a morning hike. Thorin's massive crystal form was barely visible through the thick protective barriers of his suit. "The gravitational force is compressing my molecular structure. How do you remain upright?" "Practice," Jake said with a grin. "Now, let's start with something simple. See that bird?" He pointed to a red-tailed hawk circling overhead. To Jake, it was a beautiful example of Earth's wildlife. To his students, their suits immediately began analyzing and categorizing the threat. "Danger, aerial predator detected," Vel's suit announced loudly. "Razor-sharp talons capable of penetrating most armor. Flight speed exceeds safety parameters." "It's just a hawk," Jake laughed. "They're actually quite beautiful. They hunt smaller animals, not aliens in environmental suits." "Hunt?" Crix whispered. "It kills for survival." "Well, yes. Most animals here do. It's called a food chain." The students huddled closer together as Jake led them along a mountain trail. Every few steps, their suits would detect new threats and announce them with increasing urgency. "Toxic plant life detected. Poisonous spores in atmosphere. Dangerous solar radiation levels. Unstable weather patterns approaching." Jake paused beside a cluster of wildflowers. "Look at these. Aren't they beautiful?" "Professor," Thorin rumbled, "our sensors indicate those plants produce neurotoxic compounds." "Only if you eat them," Jake said, then added with a mischievous smile, "Well, most of them. Some are toxic just to touch. But they're still pretty." The group continued walking until they reached a scenic overlook. Below them stretched a vast valley filled with forests, rivers, and distant mountains. Jake breathed deeply, feeling at peace. "This is why humans love Earth," he said. "Look at that view." His students looked, but their suits were painting a very different picture for them. Extreme temperature variations detected. Multiple apex predators in vicinity. Geological instability indicators. Flash flood risk assessment, critical. Vex's tank bubbled nervously. "Professor Martinez, your planet is trying to kill us in 17 different ways simultaneously. How do you find this peaceful?" Jake sat down on a rock, and his student suits immediately screamed warnings about unsterilized surface contact and unknown microorganism exposure. "You know what the funny thing is?" Jake said. "This is one of the safer places on Earth. Wait until you see the oceans. The horrified silence from his students was broken only by the cheerful chirping of birds, which their suits continued to classify as potential threat, unknown vocal communication patterns. Let's head back, Jake said, standing up. I think you've seen enough for day one. As they walked back toward the ship, Crix asked quietly, Professor, how do human children survive here? Jake smiled. They don't just survive, Crix. They play outside. They climb trees, swim in rivers, and camp under the stars. They think it's fun. Fun. Vel's light dimmed further. Children voluntarily expose themselves to these dangers for entertainment. Welcome to understanding humans, Jake said. We don't just survive on Earth. We thrive here. We love it here. And tomorrow, I'm going to show you why. The students exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey terror even through their environmental suits. Tomorrow? Crix asked weakly. Tomorrow, Jake confirmed, we're going to the beach. The ocean of death. The next morning, Jake led his still terrified students to the California coast. The moment they saw the Pacific Ocean, their environmental suits went into overdrive with warnings. Massive body of corrosive liquid detected. Toxic salt concentration exceeds safety limits. Unpredictable tidal forces pose drowning hazard. Jake walked straight onto the beach in shorts and a t-shirt, feeling the warm sand between his toes. His students followed at a distance, their suits leaving deep tracks in the sand as they struggled with Earth's gravity. Beautiful morning, Jake said, watching surfers ride the waves in the distance. Perfect weather for swimming. Swimming. Crix's voice was barely a whisper through her suit speaker. In that corrosive death water? It's just salt water, Jake laughed. Humans have been swimming in oceans for thousands of years. Watch this. Before his students could protest, Jake jogged toward the water and dove into an incoming wave. For a moment, he disappeared beneath the surface, and his students' suits erupted in panic. Professor Martinez has been consumed by the corrosive liquid. Initiate emergency rescue protocols. Atmospheric moisture increasing to toxic levels. Jake emerged from the water 30 meters away, floating on his back and grinning. The water's great today. Perfect temperature. Thorin's massive crystal form was practically vibrating with fear. Professor, exit the corrosive solution immediately. The salt concentration will dissolve your cellular structure. Actually, it's quite relaxing, Jake called back, doing a casual backstroke. Humans pay good money to swim in salt water. We call it therapy. A pelican landed nearby, and the students' suits immediately classified it as a new threat. Jake swam back to shore and approached the bird, which barely glanced at him before taking off again. See? Completely harmless, Jake said, water dripping from his hair. That creature had a beak capable of piercing armor plating, Vel pointed out, her blue light flickering with anxiety. It eats fish, not professors, Jake replied. Now, who wants to see something really impressive? He led them further down the beach where a family was having a picnic. A small human child, maybe 6 years old, was building sandcastles while her parents watched from nearby chairs. The students' suits went absolutely berserk. Unprotected juvenile organism detected. Critical danger, child exposed to lethal environment. Immediate intervention required. That's a human child, Jake explained. She's perfectly safe. Safe? Crix sputtered. She has no environmental protection. The radiation alone should have killed her. The little girl looked up and waved at them. Hi. Are you astronauts? Close enough, Jake waved back. How's your sandcastle coming along? Great. I found a really cool shell. She held up what the suits immediately identified as calcium carbonate structure, possible pathogen reservoir. That's wonderful, Jake said. Be careful of the waves. I will. I'm gonna go swimming after lunch. As the child skipped away, the students watched in stunned silence. That juvenile organism, Thorin rumbled, plans to voluntarily enter the corrosive death water. For fun, Jake confirmed. Her parents will probably join her. Humans love swimming in the ocean. Vex's tank bubbled frantically. Professor Martinez, I'm beginning to understand. It's not that Earth failed to kill humans. Humans are already dead, aren't they? You're all undead creatures that can't be killed by conventional means. Jake burst out laughing. No, Vex, we're very much alive. We're just adapted. Evolution made us tough enough to survive here, and then we decided we liked it. Liked it? Vel's light was barely visible now. You enjoy living in constant mortal danger. We don't think of it as danger, Jake said, settling down on the sand. This is just home. The gravity that crushes you makes us strong. The radiation that burns you gives us energy. The salt water that would dissolve you heals our wounds. The predators that terrify you, well, most of them are more afraid of us than we are of them. Most of them? Crix asked weakly. There are a few exceptions, Jake admitted. Sharks, bears, poisonous snakes, spiders, jellyfish, crocodiles, tigers. He paused at the horrified sounds coming from their suits. But that's what makes life interesting. Interesting? The word came out as a collective whimper from all his students. Which brings me to our final lesson, Jake said, standing up and brushing sand from his shorts. Tomorrow, we're going to visit a place that will show you the real secret of human survival. Worse than this? Vex bubbled. Oh, much worse, Jake grinned. We're going to Yellowstone National Park. Ever heard of supervolcanoes? The students' suits began calculating evacuation routes before Jake had even finished speaking. The truth about humans. Yellowstone National Park tested the limits of the students' environmental suits. Standing before Old Faithful, watching superheated water and steam erupting from the earth, their equipment was registering threats that didn't even have names in their databases. Geological catastrophe imminent. Toxic gas concentrations lethal. Ground temperature exceeds suit tolerance. Volcanic activity detected. Jake stood just a few meters away from the geyser in his hiking boots and jacket, completely unprotected, watching families with young children take photographs and laugh as the boiling water shot skyward. This is it, he said to his students, who were huddled together like survivors of a crash landing. This is the secret you wanted to know. The secret? Crix asked, her voice barely audible through her suit speaker. You asked how humans survived on a Class 12 death world, Jake said, sitting down on a bench while his student suits screamed warnings about unstable seating surfaces and unknown material contamination. The answer isn't that we survived Earth. The answer is that Earth made us. Jake pointed to a group of human tourists walking casually along the wooden boardwalks above the scalding hot springs. Every single thing that should have killed us made us stronger instead. The gravity that crushes you gave us dense bones and powerful muscles. The radiation that burns you gave us DNA repair mechanisms other species don't have. The predators that terrify you taught us to think, to cooperate, to build tools. A family walked by, their children running and laughing despite being surrounded by enough geological violence to sterilize a small moon. But more than that, Jake continued, Earth taught us something no other species learned. It taught us that danger and beauty are the same thing. He gestured toward the Grand Prismatic Spring, where tourists were taking selfies in front of the rainbow-colored bacteria mats that would dissolve most alien life forms in seconds. You see a pool of caustic death, Jake said. We see the most beautiful sight on our planet. You detect poisonous gases and fatal temperatures. We see something so magnificent that we travel thousands of kilometers just to look at it. Thorin's crystal form was vibrating with stress. Professor Martinez, you're saying humans are essentially broken? Your survival instincts are malfunctioning? No, Jake smiled. Our survival instincts are perfect. We just survived so well that we learned to love the things that were trying to kill us. Every challenge Earth threw at us became something we turned into entertainment. Jake pointed to the horizon where he could see people hiking, rock climbing, and whitewater rafting. Humans don't just survive on Earth. We play here. We explore every dangerous corner of this planet for fun. We dive to the bottom of the crushing oceans, climb the highest mountains, explore caves filled with toxic gases, and swim in water that's literally trying to freeze us to death. That's... Vel's light flickered uncertainly. That's insane. That's human, Jake corrected. We're the species that looked at a world trying to kill us and said, challenge accepted. And then we got so good at not dying that we started doing it for sport. The students watched in fascination and horror as a human child, no more than 10 years old, ran excitedly toward a warning sign that read, danger, extreme heat, in multiple languages. Mom, look, the child called. The ground is bubbling. The mother walked over calmly, took a photo, and explained to her child about geothermal activity while standing on what their suits were classifying as volcanic death zone. You want to know why humans are everywhere in the galaxy? Jake asked. Because we're the only species crazy enough to look at the universe and think it's not dangerous enough. We seek out black holes, explore unstable systems, and colonize worlds other species won't even visit. We thought you were fragile, Crix whispered. We are fragile, Jake agreed. That's what makes us tough. Every other species evolved on worlds that coddle them. Earth spent 4 billion years trying to murder everything that lived here, and we're what crawled out of that test. Jake stood up and looked at his students, brilliant alien minds in the most advanced protective equipment their civilizations could build, barely able to survive on his world for a few days. You asked how humans survived Earth, he said. The truth is, we didn't just survive it. We conquered it. We made it our playground. And then we got bored and decided to go find more dangerous places to play. The students stood in stunned silence, watching human families enjoy their picnics next to features that could wipe out entire cities. So the next time you see a human on your homeworld, Jake concluded, remember, we're the species that calls this place home. We're the ones who think a Class 12 Deathworld is a nice place to raise children. And we're absolutely delighted to meet you. As they walked back toward their ship, past the tourists and families treating one of the most geologically violent places on Earth as a vacation destination, Crix asked one final question. Professor Martinez, what do humans consider truly dangerous? Jake thought for a moment, then smiled. Boredom. We consider boredom the most dangerous thing in the universe. That, Vex bubbled quietly, explains everything. As the Harmony lifted off from Earth, carrying his students back to their safe, predictable worlds, Jake looked down at his beautiful, terrible, wonderful planet and smiled. His students finally understood why Earth was classified as a death world. They also finally understood why humans thrived there. And perhaps most importantly, they understood why the galaxy was full of humans who had gotten bored with just one death world and decided to go looking for more. The end.